Hello, my fellow armchair investigators. This is DS Lyons of the Movie Blues, here to provide some motivation towards interrupting your regular sleep cycle with some absolute nightmare fuel for those oncoming winter months. Today, I'll be recommending 10 of the most uniquely disturbing documentaries that I've ever seen. Before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel so that I may continue my investigations into evil with the support of my internet brethren. As a lifelong horror fan, I found myself in the early 2000s clamoring for content that would truly disturb me. Being a fan of the macabre is a vicious cycle, in that the more you see, the more you want to see, and the more that it takes to truly unnerve you.
He's cute. I like him. I like that hat, too. That's awesome.
Call it your terror tolerance.
Your worst fear is about to happen. The water's about to overtake you. I feel like I'm waiting for the results of a pregnancy test. You know what I'm saying?
This quest of darkness morphed from regular horror to love of found footage for me, as I began seeking out terrors that felt more and more real. Also, if you have any interest in that genre as well, make sure to check out the Top 20 Forgotten Found Footage Gems video on this channel after this. So when my terror tolerance for found footage finally reached its own zenith, my hunger for the harrowing finally led me to the rawest, realest genre there is: the documentary. And to my delight, over the past couple decades, there have been some truly unique, insanely unnerving, and wholly unforgettable documentaries that can outscare and outdisturb even some of the most potent horror films. And it's with this love for the genre that I proudly present 10 of the most unsettling documentaries I've ever seen. These may not be the goriest or the most bleak and hopeless docs. Instead, these are more the ones that entertained me the most while leaving the deepest, darkest impact. So yeah, there's like a ton more of these that I'm sure are not on this list, and I'd absolutely love it if you shared the ones that you're passionate about in the comments below. So yeah, without further preamble, let's get it started.
Number 10. My Amityville Horror.
Nowhere is the crossover between the horror genre and the documentary genre more potent than in the absolutely bone-chilling documentary My Amityville Horror. In my mind, there is only one Amityville movie that will actually terrify you. And it's surely not this.
Look at this dude. Wait till you see the... No.
The subject of 2012's My Amityville Horror is Daniel Lutz, who for the first time publicly in 40 years discusses the reign of evil that overtook his family in the infamous Amityville horror case, which would later go on to be adapted into both a novel and a popular film in the years following the incident. What is so undeniably chilling and morbidly fascinating about this doc is simply hearing the testimony of someone who experienced events beyond the realm of our understanding, in their own words. You can feel Daniel Lutz's internal conflict, his hidden terror, his lifelong trauma nearly oozing out of his pores. Whether the events that allegedly transpired in the Amityville house when Daniel was a little boy were real or manufactured is almost irrelevant, because the obvious lifelong trauma and horrific memories that have plagued him all of his life seem so real to him that it's nearly impossible to not be affected by his recounting. There is a single ghastly image in this doc during one of many of Daniel's absolutely harrowing memories of living in a haunted house that, absolutely mortified me forever. Think like the dead girl in the closet from The Ring or the girl at the end of Lake Mungo. I mean, it's that chilling.
I saw her face.
My Amityville Horror is a deep dive into the horrors of memory, the effects of childhood trauma, and the possibility that what happened in that house in Amityville, New York was anything but a farce. An absolute must-see for true crime documentary fans, but also for people obsessed with horror history. I mean, this is the first time you're getting to hear from somebody who was in the Amityville house as a child, and it is just a portal to fear.
Number 9. Tickled.
Tickled is a great choice for this list because, like some of the best horror movies, this film starts with a lighthearted, weird, and intriguing premise before diving headlong into the horror. This, like many films on this list, is an experience best left unspoiled due to its gargantuan twists throughout. But the most I'm willing to tell you about Tickled is that it's a 2016 documentary directed by David Farrier, an up-and-coming news reporter in New Zealand who covers some of the quirkier, more bizarre pockets of modern civilization. In this particular doc, Farrier stumbles on a website and an entire online community of men engaged in an activity known as competitive endurance tickling. Yeah. What seems at first like a harmless community of potential fetishists turns into a pitch-dark story of greed, exploitation, homophobia, and ultimately crime. As Ferrier continues to up his guerrilla investigation tactics throughout the doc, he uncovers a web of deceit and darkness that becomes so unhinged that it threatens to swallow the entire production whole. This is a surprisingly horrific, undeniably memorable documentary that is as niche and bizarre as it is revelatory and unsettling. The web is a dark place, y'all. This is like proof case 1 million. Don't fuck up on the web. Don't get weird. Don't make it weird.
Number 8. Tell Me Who I Am.
Memory and the loss thereof can be scarier than any horror movie. Tell Me Who I Am is a chronicle of one of the most uniquely bizarre stories I've ever seen in a documentary, following the life of a set of identical twin brothers after one of them loses their memory in a motorcycle accident. What happens after the accident is a slow piecing together of one man's life through the eyes of his twin, but in doing so, they both must confront the dark secrets brewing beneath the surface. In the years following the motorcycle accident, Marcus fills twin Alex in on everything he has forgotten. His family, their life, their brotherhood. It's disturbing enough knowing that Marcus has to tell his identical twin brother everything about their life all over again, but it's even more disturbing when you start to realize what he's leaving out. This documentary takes you into one of the most intense conversations honestly ever captured on film. As the twins, now adults, have a conversation in which everything is finally revealed, and a lifetime of horrifying secrets comes spilling out. This is a compelling, epic documentary that will leave you absolutely breathless and potentially in shambles.
Number 7. The Imposter.
There is seemingly no horror greater for a parent than having their child kidnapped. Until now. Or until 2012. It was made in 2012. The Imposter is another movie best truly left unspoiled, but on its face, it feels like it's going to be a pretty standard missing kid true crime yarn. Until that missing kid is found 3 years later in Spain, a long way from his disappearance from Texas when he was 13. The tales of torture and abuse that he recounts during his kidnapping are enough for the family to allow their son to reveal his trauma at his own speed. But the more information he begins to provide about his time imprisoned, the more questions begin to be raised about the validity of some of his claims. These secrets begin to fester outward and infect the entire family, calling into question the credibility of nearly everyone involved in the documentary. This movie, and its somewhat suggestive title, packs some twists and turns into its runtime that are absolutely gobsmacking. Never heard of anything like this story, and it's as unique as it is chilling. A bizarre and horrific series of events that take a family grieving for their missing child down a road of lies, cover-ups, and deceit that may end up blowing your mind. This one is a must-see that has clung to my psyche for many years afterwards. Check it out.
Number 6. Our Father.
What makes Our Father stand out against the Netflix true crime fray is how absolutely bonkers the central crime of the doc is, and how uniquely perverse the ramifications of this crime end up being. This is kind of in the vein of Tickled, where our modern technological times butt up against classically unfiltered evil. In this day and age, medically assisted reproduction can be a tricky, expensive, and time-consuming process that can put any expecting parents through a financial and emotional wringer. Enter the profoundly evil Dr. Donald Klein, who let his perversions guide him towards using his own sperm at the clinic to impregnate tens, and then dozens of women with his own seed. Decades later, his many illegitimate children begin to connect with one another after the advent of at-home DNA testing like 23andMe. As the scope of Klein's crimes only increases, a picture is slowly painted of a medical fraud so twisted, so bizarre, and so disturbing that it could only be a true story. I mean, if this shit was the plot of a movie, it would literally be very difficult to believe. Medical horrors, familial perversion, and a web of lies that spanned a quarter century unravels as Donald's children prepare to confront their biological father for the first time. This is a riveting, unforgettably twisted documentary that will have you canceling your next fertility appointment so you can rescue a dog instead. Super gross stuff here. Super gross. Super gross alert for this one.
Number 5. House of Secrets, the Berari deaths.
House of Secrets is an absolutely harrowing story of an 11-person family in middle-class India who were all found dead, hanging like the wayward limbs of a banyan tree in their home. And without signs of a robbery or any kind of struggle, the Burari mass suicide becomes instantly infamous in India for its uniquely devastating details. When I started this doc, even though the crime itself is so outwardly bizarre, I still was unprepared for the reasoning behind this garish 11-person suicide. My imagination instantly assumed that the family had fallen on money problems, or maybe was in a culturally shunned situation after one or more of the families did something shameful. Or maybe, I don't know, an affair had been uncovered or a dark truth revealed that caused the family to act with such grotesque malice against itself. But the real reason why the family committed this act is only unveiled when a secret diary is discovered in the home. Don't worry, I'm not going to spoil it for you, but it opens up a secret history of dark and truly sinister events that nearly defy belief. Everything from mind control, possession, group psychosis, and more are explored in this horrific tale that will leave you devastated and unsettled for the rest of the night. House of Secrets, The Burari Deaths, is a nearly unbelievable story that only deepens in its depravity as the 3-part series rolls on.
Number 4. Cropsy.
Much like My Amityville Horror, Cropsy is a perfect crossover point for fans of the horror genre who want an entry point into the documentary world. Cropsy follows the true crime spree of the supposed Staten Island boogeyman. But while there aren't a ton of answers or modern crime deconstructions of the case itself, Cropsy instead focuses on how the mythos and theories behind the crime spree has haunted an entire area of residents for decades. Cropsy is as much a true crime doc as it is a deconstruction of how urban myths can instill terror across generations. And while it does plenty of meta-commentary on how we view these legends, it also provides a hefty amount of horror movie level scares. There's absolutely chilling details throughout this documentary portraying the abuse and neglect of the mentally disturbed in one of Staten Island's most notorious mental institutions, with real-life footage of the horrors inside that hospital that will absolutely chill your blood. This is a pulpy, unconventional horror doc that has enthralled fans of both genres since its release in 2009. There's never been a better time to check out what all the buzz is around this one, and that's because Cropsy is a simply timeless and terrifying experience and a truly cracking documentary.
Number 3. Seaspiracy.
So yeah, this video is about disturbing documentaries, and believe it or not, some of the most utterly unsettling docs have nothing to do with murder, abuse, or boogeymen. Documentaries like 2021's Seaspiracy have the ability to instill a level of absolutely inescapable existential dread into the viewer, providing near paralysis levels of fear and paranoia around the rapidly disintegrating condition of the planet we all call home. Try putting your politics aside here, because Seaspiracy is going to paint a picture of our abuse of the ocean that should rattle any breathing human being with an ounce of empathy. Remember what Blackfish did for orcas? That's what Seaspiracy aims to do for the whole damn ocean, breaking down how bleak and unstoppable our ruination of the sea has stretched, providing insight into how overfishing and ocean population are quickly combining into a disaster that will bring down the ecology of the entire planet in a matter of decades. Remember the first time you saw, like, Kal-El's dad running around Krypton screaming to the heavens that the planet was about to burst? And, like, nobody was fucking listening? That's Seaspiracy. This is the Chicken Little moment that forces you to think about the impending destruction of this entire planet and how it's linked directly to how we are destroying our oceans. This doc went past informative and slammed headlong into abject horror. Sure, there's plenty of, like, docs about ocean abuse, like The Cove and things like that, but for some reason, this just flipped me upside down. I've not seen the ocean, nor a fish, nor a fisherman, nor an aquarium, nor a can of fucking tuna at the grocery store the same way ever again after this documentary. And while there's a lot of people who are probably refuting some of the facts and claims inside of this movie, you simply cannot deny some of the outright horrifying damage depicted in this movie, and you just can't help feeling dread from your fingers to your fins as you watch this literally life-changing documentary. I was not the same after this. I'm still not. I never will be. This is a nightmare on a global scale that I wish I could forget. Fuck overfishing and fuck destroying the ocean. After this documentary, I said I was never going to eat seafood again, and I have stuck to that like glue. Or like a fish that's sticky. That would have been a better choice here. Like a sucker fish. I don't know. The ones on the bottom. God damn it.
Number 2. Capturing the Freedmans.
From the director of The Jinx, probably the greatest true crime doc in history, comes his first masterpiece, Andrew Jarecki's Capturing the Freedmans. This is one of the first documentary crime films to truly leave an impact on the world at large, exposing HBO's global audience to one of the most disturbing, unsettling, and morbid true crime cases ever committed to the silver screen. A seemingly typical Long Island family has their Thanksgiving dinner interrupted when a SWAT team bursts into their home and arrests the patriarch of the family for heinous and truly unbelievable crimes. For real, unbelievable. Never gonna think of the game Leapfrog the same ever again. So fucked. Without warning, the life of the Friedman family is flipped backwards and dragged straight down to hell, exposing an alleged web of crimes so garish, so disgusting, and so unbelievable that people still struggle to believe they even happened to this day. This is the kind of doc that will convince you that there could be a true monster, a real embodiment of evil right next door, watching your kids eating dinner peacefully with their families. Capturing the Freedmans is the kind of gut-punch doc that will leave you reeling, devastated, and truly disgusted. This is stomach-churning, horrifying stuff that you will wish was simply a nightmare and not a documentary at all, but here we are. This is real life. This shit, and shit just like it, is probably happening in your neighborhood. Anyway, Jesus, sweet dreams, I don't know how to end this one.
Number 1, The Nightmare.
Everything's gonna be okay. And one day, we'll be back.
The Nightmare may not be my favorite documentary on this list. In fact, it isn't. Mostly, I'm just not in love with the format of this documentary, and it seems geared towards the horror crowd in a way that feels borderline exploitative. But listen, this is number 1 because the purpose of this video is to identify the most disturbing docs. And it's for that reason that The Nightmare logically needs its proper due. This is, and I can say this without even looking it up, the most dangerous potential piece of content that you could ever watch. This is, excluding The Ring, which is a piece of fiction, the only movie ever made that can actually cause physical harm to the viewer. How so, you are probably asking? Well, yeah, this is a documentary about sleep paralysis, one in which it is made explicitly clear that sleep paralysis can be spread amongst people simply by talking about it, or thinking about it, or being exposed to it through another person. So the fact that we have a full-length, quite popular, and very well-received documentary on the topic of sleep paralysis kind of means that more people are probably getting sleep paralysis. It's a mentally contagious phenomena. It's something that is increasing and multiplying, and I'm not helping that by doing this. Besides this slightly disturbing thought experiment about the film itself, The Nightmare is a chilling product all on its own, breaking down the most harrowing accounts of sleep paralysis imaginable with horror movie-style reenactments. Hearing people's sometimes lifelong battles with this condition will leave you stunned and honestly horrified. But yeah, this is somehow a dangerous film. One that seeks to expose more people to one of the most bizarre, unexplained, and horrifying phenomena that can haunt the human brain. Since this movie came out, there's been so much more discussion and recognition of sleep paralysis, and the many bizarre and haunting hallucinations that methodically taunt and torture the sleeper. If you don't know anything about this topic, I'm not sure I can recommend this experience, as bizarre as that sounds, and even though this movie's number 1 on the list, maybe your life would be better off if you just never watched it, if you just never allowed this demon into your mind. But if you must, and you're, on board to get disturbed, head headlong into the Nightmare. It's a nightmare. And that is it, folks. Very glad to provide you all another list of movies. If you guys want more of these things, then share this thing and make it more popular. Popularity breeds more effort. Effort breeds hate. Hate leads to jealousy, etc. Love you. Subscribe. Do the thing. DS out.